A lot of great music in that movie as well. Katie Tur, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Mondays.
See you later, Ari.
Tonight, there is growing pressure on Donald Trump as he confronts all of this heat from the Mueller probe. A former top campaign aide, this is brand new, Rick Gates, now ready to plead guilty in the Mueller probe. He would be testifying, of course, against his old boss, Paul Manafort. Sources telling the LA Times Gates will plead guilty to fraud-related charges within days. One source says Gates would give prosecutors the, quote, cherry on top against their case against Manafort. That news, of course, is coming while Washington still digests this unprecedented set of charges from Bob Mueller against 13 Russians conducting information warfare against the U.S., of course, for the election interference. All of this news has driven Donald Trump to lash out, even by his own standards. This has been quite the tweet storm this weekend. He falsely insisted the Mueller indictments clear him. They don't. He attacked the FBI, bringing in the shooting. He even lashed out his own national security advisor for confronting the Russians. But Trump did fail to address 2 points. One, whether he will punish Russia for these attacks that are now the product of a criminal conspiracy charged in court. And two, whether he'll try to stop them again.
What is it we're going to do about the threat posed by the Russians? He never talks about that. It's all about himself.
Why is President Trump failing to act to protect our democracy?
It is inexplicable that the President of the United States continues to sit on sanctions.
And not once, sir, has he condemned Russia. Does that bother you?
It does, because Russia's clearly tried to advance their agenda into the United States.
Let's get right to it. I've gathered 3 esteemed former federal prosecutors with expertise in this area. Daniel Goldman, prosecuting international organized crime cases in New York, including involving Russians. Philip Yurovsky worked at the DOJ's criminal division. And, of course, Barbara McQuade, who has overseen extensive public corruption and terror cases as a U.S. attorney. All of you guys are great. And I see Philip getting the water ready, which is always key. You got to be hydrated, Rubio style. Barbara, let me start with you. If Rick Gates pleads guilty, what does that mean for this probe?
Well, I think it could be helpful, certainly, in the Manafort investigation. It could be that his cooperation helps in any trial of Paul Manafort by providing someone who can explain and connect the dots for prosecutors. But I also think it could ultimately help in a prosecution of connections between Russia and the Trump campaign if he has information about that, because either he has his own information about it, Gates does, or he could induce cooperation from Paul Manafort. If Manafort's conviction becomes inevitable with the cooperation of Rick Gates, it could cause him to enter a guilty plea and try to cooperate. And, of course, Paul Manafort, as the former campaign chairman, may have information that is useful in that ultimate question.
Philip, speak to Barbara's point, which anyone will recognize from any outdoor barbecuing, and it is President's Day. You go up to the grill, you don't flip one burger. You flip all the burgers in a row. And the idea is that at least the goal of the Mueller prosecutors and the team here, which includes folks from the Enron task force that cracked some pretty tough suspects and defendants, the goal would be not only to flip Gates this week, in days, according to the reporting we have, but that would lead to Manafort flipping. Is that, in your view, at all possible, or is that really overstating the case at this point?
No, I don't think that's impossible or overstating the case. You know, all of us who were prosecutors learned very early on, mostly doing drugs and guns cases, that you start at the bottom and you build up. And as you go up, you find someone who has the information that will help you get the next guy and the guy after that. I frankly think, given the leak that Mr. Gates is about to plead, that they already have flipped him. They've already done a very extensive debrief of him. Otherwise, they wouldn't be offering a deal. And it sounds like they're offering a deal.
Your legal analysis, again, I mention it because you've done it as being a prosecutor who's done this kind of work, is that we wouldn't even be hearing this if Mueller didn't already know what Gates has.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, it sounds to me that they have, or they're very close to striking a deal with him, that they have offered some form of leniency, perhaps not in writing, but an agreement that if he delivers on what he's offered, that they'll file a motion to reduce his sentence, what's called a 5K at sentencing. I think that they're very likely very, very close, and they know what he said or what he will say, either through a proffer from his attorney or more likely through a direct interview proffer from him.
Yeah, and that's a remarkable place that we're in, because a year ago, Daniel, you would not have been sitting here thinking that the people running the Trump campaign, the campaign manager, the deputy, and Mike Flynn, clearly the most senior national security voice they had, would all be in this predicament. And yet you run that against the reason you're here, which is, what does it mean to prosecute foreign nationals? Take a listen to H.R. McMaster speaking here at this Munich conference, making waves in his view of what Mueller found.
And as you can see with the FBI indictment, the evidence is now really incontrovertible and available in the public domain.
Let's be clear. That's Mike Flynn's replacement. That is the man, right, talking about the investigation that got a guilty plea of his predecessor. And then you look to the skepticism, which we always cover all sides and reactions here. There is a skeptical view in the United States, particularly among some Trump allies, of, well, what does it even mean to indict foreigners, and is it really a big deal? You've done this before. Does it matter?
Well, it matters in a whole host of different ways. One, it could matter because you're bringing people to justice from overseas, and as long as you have jurisdiction here in the United States based on their conduct touching upon the United States, then that's obviously the #1 primary goal. But second, you have two other potential goals. One is what we would often call naming and shaming, where, as in this case, where you don't really expect to get anyone in court. You don't expect to arrest anyone. The United States does not have an extradition treaty with Russia, and Russia will almost certainly not agree to extradite their own citizens, which is actually more common than you would expect. But you want to put out in the public record what crimes foreign internationals have committed against the United States. And so you have that aspect of what the Mueller indictment is. This is really a document of historical record as to what occurred related to social media infiltration of the 2016 election.
And when you lay that predicate, Philip, can that then be used for potential American collaboration in any foreign conspiracy?
Well, yes. I see this as the beginning of a series of indictments, perhaps. This lays out the case that there was, from the Mueller investigation, that there is, in fact, evidence of Russian meddling. It's very specific. It's interesting to me, how specific it is. It indicates that they have, some source of information that gave them inside information that they believe is authentic. And this doesn't mean that that's the end of it. I think you can go from here to there to there. Whether, I agree that this could very well be an indictment for public consumption, to indicate that there is a there to refute some of the messaging that's been in the press and from the Congress over the past, and the administration over the past, several weeks.